It's January the 3rd, 2020. Dubai International Airport buzzes with its usual activity. But today is no ordinary day. National Crime Agency and Serious and Organised Crime Unit detectives are on high alert. Amidst the bustling crowd, a man appears. As soon as the police spot him, they rush forward, detain him and confiscate his belongings. This abrupt end belongs to Leon Cullen, once the kingpin of Cheshire's Underworld, now caught in an elaborate sting operation. Leon Cullen, who once ruled Cheshire's Underworld with narcotics and weapons, raking in £350,000 worth of profits, now faced the reward for the hard work put in by the NCA, Cheshire Police, Interpol and UAE authorities. How did this arrest come about? More importantly, how did Leon Cullen become Warrington's most wanted man? To answer this question, we'll have to dive into the story of the Cullen Twins gang. Who were the Cullen Twins? Born in the summer of 1987, Leon and Anthony Cullen grew up in the Longford area of Warrington. Anthony was level-headed and popular, while Leon was the dynamite, a volatile thug. The twins were well known in criminal circles by their early 20s. Leon masterminded an 18-strong narcotic cartel that shipped at least 5 kilos of coke worth around £300,000 across the northwest. This continued for 6 months while the profits were laundered through a business called Spots on Signs. What's more, they kept meticulous records on spreadsheets on a laptop. Despite their illegal activities, you have to hand it to them for their organisation. But the same spreadsheets brought their downfall. The laptop was confiscated from the front company and the police found nearly £100,000 worth of debt owed by other dealers. After a series of arrests and raids in late 2010, this narcotic operation began to dismantle. This was due to an incredible operation by Cheshire Police named Operation Cortex, which sent group members to prison for nearly 100 years. At that time, Leon was 24. He was thrown in the slammer for 9 years and 8 months. In his absence, Anthony took over the operation, but was caught swiftly by the police. He was slapped with a 5.5-year prison sentence in 2012 after Operation Knock revealed a narcotics factory in a caravan in Rixton. However, the twins did not back down. They were back in business after their release. A fresh police investigation opened up the Cullens in 2016, which led to their ultimate arrest, the details of which we're going to tell you later. Cullen's gang, risen from the ashes. The twins created a highly organised, hierarchical OCG based on a business model. They used a front business named Future Press Limited to launder cash from their illicit trade. The enterprise had a clear hierarchy, which should have been evidenced now since we've mentioned the low-ranking minions a few times before. They had a proper wage structure and employment mechanism. New recruits had to first build trust by making successful runs. After that, they became part of the team and were provided a higher wage and accommodation. Anthony alone had 16 phone numbers, indicating that the key members repeatedly changed phones. The accomplices were ordered to acquire new graph phones for themselves and for Anthony. They targeted the Winsford area to sell Class A narcotics. Anthony McElliott, Stephen Wood and Anthony Jones were the main suppliers. The business thrived until the police seized 1/4 kilo of coke in May 2017. The twin brothers carved out a web of violence and intimidation. They established a lucrative coke trafficking network with right-hand man Robert Bibby and armourer Chris Houghton. They looked after dealers and low-level members as well. These thugs were provided with wages and accommodation in return for working for the twins. One of these minions bragged over text that he would be balls deep in money. It turns out he wasn't very wrong. This professional business-like operation was offering monthly wages of £50,000 along with bonuses of up to £10,000 and accommodation. Way to earn people's loyalty, right? The incentives are just like a bureaucratic job in a developing country, only with added risk. And that risk, my friends, should never be forgotten, no matter how big the bucks are involved are. In the end, all you get is prison meals and living behind bars. It's not a good bargain. Nevertheless, the incentives brought the Cullen Twins loyalty and hard work by the members, enabling the gang to net profits amounting to £290,000 each month. Weapons for hire. The Cullen Twins' attention turns to supplying lethal weapons to other Underworld thugs. This side hustle started in July 2017 when Leon came into direct contact with a Liverpool associate for the transfer of weaponry and ammunition. As they were on the police's radar, Anthony was caught between a rock and a hard place. He was aware that the detectives were on his case and wanted to avoid arrest, but he didn't want to stop business either. According to the prosecutor, he kept supplying Class A and Class B narcotics despite the police's scrutiny. He just changed his tactics to throw the police off his scent. Nevertheless, the gang members kept getting busted. Anthony and Houghton, along with lower-ranking members named Michael Mason and John Eastons, were caught supplying a Ruger arm to a customer in Liverpool for up to £3,000. The police found the weapon wrapped in cling film in a bag at a house after the customer rejected it for not working properly. The police were about to hit the real jackpot. The next day, they recovered a trove of fully functioning weapons from another property, which was also the home of a school-aged child. One of the weapons was believed to be the replacement for the Ruger, while the others were found hidden in a loft under the insulation. This is the picture of their collection of arms. We would have told you the details about the other weapons, but YouTube wouldn't like it. We've already said too much about the subject, so better not trifle with the big boss. However, we will tell you something about these weapons. They formed the largest ever cache to be recovered in Cheshire. The downfall begins. Closely monitoring the group's activities, the detectives were waiting to catch them in action. Courier Christopher Potter was arrested right in the middle of the action when he was on his way to deliver coke. After his arrest, the gang realised they were on the police's radar. A serious organised crime unit was on their case. However, instead of lying low, as we told you earlier, the group changed their methods and tactics. However, that didn't prevent them from getting caught. CCTV footage recorded Anthony and Houghton buying a safe from B&Q in 2017 to store 1 kilo of coke at a house in Warrington. But their jig wasn't up yet, at least for them. They kept operating and making profits from their illicit activities. By August 2017, they'd carved links to the northeast. At that time, another courier, Matthew Spencer, who was a former soldier, was stopped on the A1 as he was returning from the delivery spot. A hefty amount of cash was found behind his seat, amounting to over £100,000. One by one, the group members were arrested in 2018. Watching his associates getting arrested left and right, Anthony made plans to flee to Portugal. However, his attempt to escape was foiled. He was detained in Dover hours after the strikes. Also, more pressing matters were awaiting his attention. Making more money, he carried on his business only to be imprisoned later. Other gang members included Sean Ryan, who was sent to put pressure on 2 narcotic dealers who owed tens of thousands to the Cullen Twins. The police stopped his vehicle and found lists with names, addresses and amounts owed, as well as a knife and 2 bullets. The latter 2 were meant to send a chilling message to the pair in case they decided not to pay up. According to the prosecutor, he was attempting to intimidate people into paying up the debts set out on the paper lists found in his possession. The Cullens turned on their own members if they felt they'd been crossed. One such case was of the lower-ranking minion of the Cullen Twins gang, Christopher LaRosa, who was given a severe beating in May 2017. The reason for this beating is not confirmed, as authorities suspected he had either crossed the twins financially or had made them suspicious after a coke seizure in the same month. According to the authorities, over 50 kilos of coke was estimated to have been supplied to dealers in Cheshire, Bangor in North Wales, and in the northeast between June 2016 and January 2018. Along with supplying coke, the gang also engaged in a side hustle, trafficking cannabis in kilos. However, this wasn't their main source of income. The police found secret ledgers and tick lists showing the gang had monthly overheads of around £56,000, consisting of dealers' wages and warehouse rental. In a series of strikes, as part of an 18-month covert operation, over £200,000 in cash and almost a kilo of coke were confiscated. The lists confiscated contained fingerprints of Anthony Cullen and a gang member, Robert Bibby. These lists indicate the estimated profits for just January and February for that year as just under £600,000. Another thug, Nigel Girk, a driver, was found to have a custom-designed hide built into his Passat car between the boot and the back seat. It was operated from a cigarette lighter system which contained traces of coke. You gotta give them credit for creativity, right? Nevertheless, the gang was dismantled and sentenced in 2019. Anthony Cullen, the kingpin, was slapped with a 27-year sentence. His brother Leon was on the run from the police and was sentenced later. The other 19 thugs who were sentenced included Chris Houghton. He was an integral member of the group and acted as its armourer. He pled guilty to conspiracy to possess for sale or transfer prohibited arms and ammunition. He was jailed for 20 years. Given that the group was highly organised and hierarchical, certain levels were attributed to the members based on their ranks. Level 3 comprised high-ranking members of the narcotic gang who met customers, delivered products and transported money. These members included Nigel Girk, convicted of conspiracy to supply coke and pleaded guilty to production of cannabis. He was jailed for 10 years. Gary White, the thug, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply coke and jailed for 6 years. Christopher La Rosa, convicted of conspiracy to supply coke and cannabis. He was jailed for 12 years. Thomas Hill, he was jailed for 7 years and 10 months after pleading guilty to conspiracy to supply coke. Then there was Level 4. These were the middle rank of the gang, tasked to make narcotic runs, advertise them, and were trusted to perform different tasks by higher ranking members. These members included Jason Eastons, he was jailed for 13 years. Michael Mason, produced from prison, this thug was jailed for 13 years and 8 months. Sean Ryan, he was jailed for 5 years and 2 months. Sammy Hadri, he was jailed for 8 years and 4 months. Dylan McGann, this thug was jailed for 5 years and 10 months. Chris Potter, he was jailed for 4 years and 11 months. Scott Quinn, he was jailed for 4 years. Josh Mercer, this low-rank yet trusted hoodlum of the gang, was jailed for 3 years and 8 months. Liam King, he was jailed for 5 years and 4 months. Matthew Spencer, he was jailed for 6 years. Steve Wood, jailed for 8 years and 6 months. Andrew McElliott, jailed for 9 years. Steve Cowell, jailed for 6 years and 8 months. After their sentencing, Detective Chief Inspector Mike Evans of Cheshire Police remarked, "The significant sentences handed to Cullen and his associates are not only down to the dedication and commitment from the serious organised crime unit who led a long, complex investigation, but to the local community who came forward with information." Leon Cullen, mastermind on the run. Now let's come to our man Leon Cullen, the protagonist of this video, Warrington's most wanted man. During the heyday of his OCG, he strengthened his enterprise and influence by using violence as intimidation tactics. Soon he earned a reputation for viciously quelling those who crossed him and enforcing debts. While he started out as a thug, his attention turned to another lucrative and resourceful illicit business, supply of weapons, in July 2017. He came into direct contact with Liverpool associate to transfer weapons and ammunition. The police found him in control of a functioning AK series rifle, a pump-action shotgun, automatic pistols and revolvers, as well as a silencer that was fitted to one of the automatic handguns, complete with ammunition. The weapons were available for other gangs to hire for thousands of pounds, or purchase for more. At least one of the weapons, a self-loading arm, turned out to be used in an attack at a house in Liverpool in August 2015. The house's living room was targeted while the occupants were inside. His OCG comprised 20 men, including his brother. These thugs met justice way earlier than their kingpin. The group was sentenced to a total of 185 years in January 2019. His brother was slapped with a 27-year-old sentence while he was on the run. After the gang members were locked up, a few other thugs were also jailed as they continued the operation. 2 of them included Lewis Turner, who was Cullen's nephew, and Jamie Oldroyd. Meanwhile, Leon was on the run. He was name-checked in court several times in various high-profile trials. He was also linked to many alarming incidents. One such incident happened in February 2018. An explosive was planted underneath a parked car on the driveway of a family home in Orford. The house had 4 children inside and the firing pin was still in it, which means the device was primed to explode. The police removed the device to a secure location. Nevertheless, it later turned out to be an intimidation tactic as part of a disagreement between 2 gangs, one headed by Leon Cullen, the other by Sean Smith. A man named Billy Jones was linked to the incident, who was reportedly acting on Leon's behalf. Although he wasn't linked directly with Leon, the judge said that his client moved in the circles associated with Leon Cullen. It's not as though your client was not linked to this. He was a close associate of people who grew up with Leon Cullen, said the judge. This incident was part of a tit-for-tat series of attacks. Earlier, there was an incineration attack at a Smithy's gym in Bewsey, after which the windows of Leon's home in Honister Avenue in Orford got bricked. Then Leon's BMW was torched. After this came the explosive incident. Another incident linked to Leon happened in September 2019, where his associates fired shots at a house to frame a rival. The weapon used in the attack, as well as a stash of coke, was planted in a car of Leon's rival. This dispute was over a woman with whom both men had been romantically involved. On November 18th, 2019, a man was attacked in the stomach before being dumped outside a hospital. This incident was also linked to the Cullens gang. However, things started to go awry for the gang members after that. People who were close to Leon Cullen started getting targeted because of a reported £200,000 narcotic debt owed to a Salford-based gang. In January 2020, a member of his inner circle was attacked near a children's playground. Eyewitnesses saw him running in a zigzag pattern to avoid getting hit by the bullets while he carried a child in his arms. What's more, Cullen's rivals plotted to take out 2 of his associates, one of whom was his and Anthony's dad. Serving soldier Aaron Bretherton travelled from Liverpool with accomplices while posing as a fake pizza delivery man to take out smack dealer Liam Byrne Jr., who had a £10,000 bounty placed on his head. However, Byrne Jr. wasn't at home at the time, and his stepfather David Barnes was hit instead, in a case of mistaken identity. The same evening, another fake pizza man attempted to eliminate the twins' father, but mistakenly went to his former home address and had to leave without incident. The hunt continues. After he fled the UK, a police hunt started in January 2018. People were informed about his appearance, a 30-year-old white man of slim build with short, light brown hair, tanned complexion and prominent white teeth. The thug also had 2 distinctive tattoos. At the same time, efforts were in full swing to catch Leon. A £5,000 reward was offered by Crime Stoppers, as well as a van bearing his mugshot was parked outside the Halliwell Jones Stadium on a Warrington Wolves match day. The efforts bore fruit as the authorities started receiving information about Cullen's whereabouts. Cullen had spent a considerable period of time in Spain before moving to Dubai around early 2019. During this time, only a handful of images of Cullen emerged. In one image, he was posing for a selfie in the mirror of a lift with a Louis Vuitton man bag and wearing a flashy watch, certainly very different from the picture on his wanted poster. His bag was valued up to £1,500, while his designer t-shirt cost up to £500. It really pissed people off. Leon Cullen's web of deceit finally came to an end in 2020. He was arrested in Dubai after being on the run from the police for almost 2 years. Catching him was no easy feat, and not at all a one-person job. It was a result of collaboration between Cheshire Police's Serious and Organised Crime Unit, in partnership with the National Crime Agency, North West Regional Organised Crime Unit, Interpol and police authorities in the United Arab Emirates. After his arrest, Detective Inspector Giles Pearce of Cheshire's Serious and Organised Crime Unit said, "Cullen's arrest has been a long time coming, and I'm extremely pleased that our hard work and determination to pursue him has paid off." He admonished the other thugs as well, saying, "I hope this serves as a reminder to those who attempt to evade the police that, no matter how far you run and for how long, we will always catch up with you." More often than not, the law enforcement does catch up with criminals, don't you think? But how did the arrest come about?
given that he became Warrington's most wanted man for fleeing after his gang's arrest in 2018. NCA's International Crime Bureau was involved. Cullen obtained a false passport and used it for 2 years after fleeing the UK on January 10, 2018. An operation led Soku detectives uncovering the identity he was using to travel after he was detained in Dubai. Notably, many absconders are busted by the local police for some small crime or suspicious activity and then for false identity. However, this thug was caught directly as a result of an operation. Detective Chief Inspector Mike Evans detailed how Leon was arrested. He said, "When he fled the country in 2018, a significant policing operation began that was built on information from the local community, along with other sensitive networks that centered on uncovering the identity that he was using to travel. Once we knew the details of the false passport that had been sought to him from his associates, it was then easy to narrow him down to the United Arab Emirates. All of this came from really good police work. Once we had the identity he was using, we were able to work with other law enforcement partners, the National Crime Agency, and authorities in the United Arab Emirates to establish where he was using those details, which led us to his arrest." Leon was the leader of the organised crime group alongside his brother Anthony, but we knew there are still people in the community who are close to him and are continuing his criminality. But before Leon fled the country, he was living quite a bling life, which makes sense given the massive profits his gang was earning. He splashed money on a Maserati and wore designer wear. Just around the 2-year anniversary of his escape, the detectives finally got their hands on him. His arrest came a few days before the playground shooting. This attack was believed to be revenge for grassing up Leon Cullen. The fallout. The sun set on Leon Cullen's criminal career and freed him on January 3rd, 2020, when he was detained on an international arrest warrant in Dubai. He was on the run for 2 years and managed to evade the police by using a false passport. The officers on his case must have breathed a sigh of relief after this arrest. What do you think? What's more, a Rolex watch valued at over £20,000 and nearly £5,000 in cash was seized from his possession at the time of his detention. It looks like there was no solace for him anymore. It turns out you can have all the fun you want, but once you're ensnared in the clutches of the law, there's no going back. You'll get punch after punch. Just remember, these punches are not literal, because they wouldn't be legal exactly. But Leon's troubles had just begun after the detention at the airport. He had to spend 13 months in custody in the UAE, a country known for harsh prison conditions. In the first 4 days, he was alone in a darkened room with a hood on his head. After that, he was transferred to a cell with 50 other inmates. His head was shaved and he was forced to wear robes and sandals. At that place, guards assaulting an inmate wasn't a big deal, so he had his fair share of beatings by the guards. He was detained access to basics like toothpaste. He had to brush his teeth with soap. This should be a public service message for all the criminals fleeing to the Emirates. It's all hunky-dory with the beaches and the malls, but only until you get caught. After that, the nightmare begins. Nevertheless, Cullen was brought back to the UK, after which he was indicted with charges. Despite that, he was looking at a large sentence. Do you think he would have breathed a sigh of relief after getting back to a place where prisoners had certain rights? The thug admitted to conspiracy to supply firearms, conspiracy to possess firearms and ammunition, and conspiracy to supply coke, which he admitted. At the completion of his extradition proceedings, he was brought back to the UK on February the 19th, 2021. Realising that there was no way out, he admitted to being part of the criminal network alongside his twin brother Anthony. He was sentenced to 22 years and 6 months. Although he confessed his crimes, his troubles were only beginning. In August 2022, Cullen was slapped with a Serious Crime Prevention Order, SCPO. It means he would be closely monitored after completing his sentence and getting out of prison. Imagine serving 22.5 years in prison and still not being able to live freely after getting released. That's the downside of leading the life of crime. The SCPO prohibits Cullen from associating with other members of his organised crime group. Moreover, he'd be required to inform Cheshire Constabulary of any vehicles and communication devices he owns or uses, and must tell the police where he's living and working and of any bank accounts he uses. The order will be looming over his head for 5 years from his release date. Under the order, he would be allowed to own only 2 computers and 2 mobile phones at any time. Leon Cullen was convicted as part of one remarkable Operation Samurai, a covert investigation into an enterprise that specialised in supplying firearms, ammunition and coke to organised crime groups across the northwest. It seemed the thug's troubles weren't going to end sooner. He was ordered to pay back his ill-gotten gains. Leon appeared in court in August 2022 following the investigations by Cheshire police into his ill-gotten gains. He was ordered to pay over £22,000 as proceeds of crime. However, he had raked in nearly £400,000 from his coke and gun empire. The police had already confiscated his Rolex watch and over £22,000 in cash. Notably, the watch was sold at auction for £3,000 more than it was expected. It would have been good news for any other owner, but this one wasn't getting anything from the sale. Anyhow, the Crown Prosecution Service requested to expand the Proceeds of Crime Act to include the additional amount and make it over £25,000. Interestingly, Cullen was given 3 months to pay the amount, even though the authorities already had the money. Sometimes, staying true to the word of the law can lead to these somewhat weird situations. Another interesting thing about this episode was Cullen's nonchalance when he appeared in court from HMP Franklin via video link. And the first thing he said after confirming his name was that it was absolutely pointless him being there, but that he wasn't that wrong though. He appeared before the court to be ordered to pay what the prospective recipients already had. Detective Inspector Rob Balfour from the Serious and Organised Crime Unit commented, "The criminal activity run by the Cullens has earned them, and others at the top end of the organised crime group, a considerable amount of money from which they have lived a lavish lifestyle for a short time. Seizing the ill-gotten gains can also be a lesson for other criminals not to go down this road. Among others, the major attraction to the life of crime is uninterrupted cash flow. Taking away that wealth at the end can deter people from opting for crime. Do you think it's enough to be a deterrent, or as other stricter punishment should follow? As Balfour said, we will keep utilising this legislation, so not only do criminals have to complete lengthy sentences, their earned assets are removed and their lives post-sentence are affected by further financial restrictions until they have literally paid their debt to society." Lesson for aspiring criminals. As the lid was finally closed on the Cullen gang, the police wanted one more thing to do now, to share the Cullen story as a lesson for others. They shared the digitally aged image of the Cheshire Twins on a giant billboard in Warrington to show how old they will be after their jail sentences. They hoped these pictures would serve as a warning to others. Cheshire Police's Detective Chief Inspector Mike Evans said they hoped the aged image would make people wonder if the crime was really worth it. He said, "People may think it's a quick and easy way to earn money, to lead a lavish lifestyle, but that's far from the reality. Instead, you become embroiled in violence and debt and are constantly looking over your shoulder. Leon and Anthony will leave prison a lot older. They'll miss out on being around their family. They'll be under constant watch by the authorities when released and always paying back what they profited. Young men will at one time have looked up to them, but now we want them to look at them in a different light and see the true reality of where organised crime takes you. Is it really worth it?" On that question, we wrap up today's video. What do you think about Cullen's story? Let us know in the comments.